Hey everybody, it's Mother Goose 27 and welcome back to my channel. So, it has been probably a month since I've reviewed an anime, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. First off, before we really get into it, this video will contain spoilers, so be warned. I have heard a lot about this show. A lot of really great things. Honestly, probably all positive. And of course, I've seen the memes. And it looked really interesting. So, I finally watched Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Season 1. Like always, time codes in the description if you guys want to jump around. I'm going to be talking about my general thoughts to start with. Then I'll talk about the characters. I'm going to talk about the music, just a little bit. I don't have a lot to say about the music. I'm going to talk about the animation, and then I'll give some final thoughts. First, I just want to say, I thought this was in space. From what I'd seen, I thought this was a space adventure. You have no idea how shocked I was when I started watching the show and it was in the 1800s. What? Now, where I got that idea, I have no idea. I don't know, maybe the way they were dressed just made me think space? Anyway, I was really pleasantly surprised. I thought that was really cool to find out that it starts in the 1800s. I know it advances throughout the seasons. Talking about the seasons, let me just get this out there now. I'm going to be reviewing each season on their own. So, I finished season 1. I'm about halfway through season 2 currently. And then after I finish that, so I finally watched season 3. So I finally watched season 4. And I think that's it, 4 seasons. Netflix only has 2 seasons, so I was just going to watch both seasons and then just do one big review, because I thought there was only 2 seasons. And then I looked it up on Vudu, because I was like, I like this, I'm going to buy it. And then I saw there were 2 more seasons, and I said, big oof, there's no way I'm going to get through 4 seasons in only one video. So that's how I'm going to split it up. I honestly really enjoyed season 1. I loved that it was split into 2 parts. I loved that it's a continual story based on the Joestar family. I was slightly disappointed, and let me explain. In part 1, it really emphasizes the rivalry between Jonathan and Dio, and it goes on and on and on about how this is like the most legendary rivalry. Well, and then they both die. After having only a couple of battles, and I just feel like they hyped up that part of it a little too much. But, I mean, I get it. I understand with season 2, Dio comes back with Jonathan's body. He somehow survived. I'll get into that in my next video, but I don't know. I was just a little disappointed. I was emotionally prepared to follow Jonathan till the end of the series. So, seeing him, I guess, die, basically, was disappointing. But I loved that the stories continued on through his family, through Joseph and through Jotaro. So that was really great. Let's talk about part 1. I really loved the story. I loved how they just set up everything. It felt natural. It felt smooth. I loved the rivalry between Dio and Jonathan. And to see Jonathan overcome Dio in the end was very satisfying. In terms of part 2, Joseph and the Pillarmen. Honestly, the Pillarmen were so much larger of a threat than Dio, and it just brought a lot more suspense to it. And Joseph and Caesar and Lisa, they pushed Hamon much further than what we saw in part 1, and I really enjoyed that. I love magic systems where you start out at the very basics, and then you get to see all the just amazing things people do with it as they grow and they learn with it. So that was absolutely fantastic. Loved that so much. I also loved watching Joseph overcome each of the Pillarmen. Obviously, he starts with fighting the weakest Pillarman and works his way up to fighting the strongest one. And the way he beats him, I thought was fantastic. Like, how do you kill an unkillable enemy? Send them into space, boys! So no, just overall, I really, really loved it. But now I'm going to talk about some things I didn't quite like. First off, it was extremely dramatic and the dialogue was very on the nose. And I get it. A lot of anime is like this, and typically I enjoy it, but I just felt like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, at least part 1, took it way too far. Part 2 still had some moments where I was like, oh no, stop. But I didn't feel like it was as bad. Let me just specify, I guess, when I say dramatic and the dialogue's on the nose. They literally, like, something small will happen, and then they'll go into, like, a 20 or 30 second dialogue on what just happened. And that's for literally, like, almost every action. And I just felt like it really ruined the immersion. I just felt like the creators didn't trust the audience. And again, I know that happens a lot in anime, but it was just too much for me, personally, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, if you visually see something happen, you don't need the characters to describe in the dialogue just what happened. And I just felt like it ruined the immersion. It really slowed down the story, especially the action scenes. Oh my gosh. There was some beautiful action scenes, but then they just kept getting interrupted by other characters describing what we just saw. We already know. I'm sorry, this got me livid. By the end of part 1, I was feeling a little frustrated, and there was one character above all others that was the worst, and that was Speedwagon. Oh my gosh, I loved Speedwagon at first. I thought that was such a cool concept, like street gang member who joins the team, becomes a good guy. Like, I love Speedwagon, especially the fact that, you know, he builds a fortune and, you know, becomes really rich and everything that happens in part 2. But oh my gosh, he just wouldn't stop talking, and I'm just like, I just want to see them punch each other. Please, Speedwagon, stop talking. Or they'd beat an enemy, they'd like punch them to the ground and they're knocked out, and then instead of finishing them off, they'd stand there and talk to each other for a couple of minutes, and then the enemy would get back up, fully revived, ready to fight, and it was just really frustrating because it made the characters feel dumb. I'm sorry. It really slowed down the pacing, and it really, really bothered me. But, like I said, that was the worst in season 1, part 1. Part 2 had a couple of moments like that, but it definitely wasn't as bad. Let's talk about the characters. So, let's start with our Joestars, Jonathan and Joseph. I loved that they were both extremely strong and powerful, but they're each their own unique characters. Jonathan was a gentleman, always wanting to do the right thing, to be the right person, to help his friends as much as he could. And Joseph, on the other hand, he was a good guy too. Don't get me wrong, but he also was a con artist. And I really liked that because he'd use his cons to trick his enemies, and he outsmarted them, and I thought that was fantastic. I loved both the Joestars. Now, we've already talked about Speedwagon a little bit. I liked him a lot better in part 2. I feel like he wasn't describing what was happening as much, and I really liked him in the beginning. In the second one, obviously he had his money and his technology, and he helped the team out a lot there. But in the first one, I feel like he was just kind of there to describe what was happening. He didn't really help the team that much. I'm sorry. I know there are probably people out there who love Speedwagon and who hate me for saying this, but he's probably my least favorite character. Dio was fantastic. Loved him as a villain. I loved how cruel he was, how intelligent he was, and how driven he was. I just think he made a fantastic villain for Jonathan. and later on. But again, we'll talk about that later. But overall, great villain, and I'm really excited to see how they use him more in the future. The Pillarman, when you saw the first Pillarman absorb a vampire, it just really made you realize just how weak, how outmatched everyone else was, especially Joseph. And then you find out that that was actually the weakest of the Pillarmen. It just really added a lot of suspense. I loved their philosophy. I mean, I didn't agree with it, but for a villain, I thought it worked. And the fight scenes against them were fantastic. Lisa, okay, can I just rant for a second? Can I just rant for a millisecond? How did Joseph not realize that was his mom? Excuse me? Literally, it's stated early on that his mother, besides his grandmother and her father, was the only other survivor from the shipwreck. And early on into meeting Lisa, she says she was a survivor of the shipwreck. How did Joseph not put two and two together? Excuse me? It just really frustrated me because the second she said it, I was like, oh, she's his mom. And then it was episodes later. It wasn't until the end of the series that it was revealed. What? Why? I really liked Lisa though. I thought she was a great character, extremely powerful, and made a great teacher. The Zalepanese. Oh, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Will and Caesar. Once again, I loved that you got to see the family progress. You see Will, and then you see Caesar, and I loved that they both of them sacrificed themselves so that the Joestars could win, could overcome Dio and the Pillarmen, and their sacrifices really did make a difference. I really liked all the characters. Those are the main ones I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to move on to music and animation. And I don't really have a lot to say on each of these, so I'm just going to kind of combine them into one. The music I absolutely loved, and there were so many iconic meme songs that I've heard over and over and over again, and to hear them and be like, oh, that's where that's from. Really, really loved that. In terms of the animation, I loved the animation. It was so good. I loved the style. The fight scenes were animated really well, and it just looked really, really good. I will say, though, sometimes they were very creative with the color, and it could be kind of jarring. Dio had blonde hair, and Jonathan had blue hair, and it was just really, really weird to see when the character's hair color would change. Obviously, like, all the colors were different, and it was an artistic choice. There was a reason behind it, but personally, I didn't really like it. I just felt like it pulled me out of the moment. But besides that, I loved the animation. So, overall, I really enjoyed Season 1. I've heard some bad things about it. I heard some people say you could just skip Season 1. I don't see why. I really loved it. I loved Dio. I loved the Pillarmen, the Joestars, just the progression of the story. I thought it was really great. So if you're considering watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, don't skip Season 1. Don't skip it. It's really good. And I mean, it has stuff in it that I didn't like. That's okay. It still is a great story with great characters. I'm really excited to see just where this story goes and where the Joestar family does and who they have to face. I'm excited for this series, and I will be making more videos like this. It's probably going to be a while, though, before my Season 2 video, so just hang in tight. I got plenty of other content coming. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to join the flock. Also, all my other places you can find me on social media are in the description below. I'm Mother Goose. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.